The following has been recorded at Cairn University. Any reproduction of this recording without the express permission of the university is prohibited.
One of the things that I'm really concerned about this morning is that you, in whatever major the Lord has led you to here at Cairn University, in whatever field you're planning to go forward in, that you would be able to take away some things that we talk about here today as alumni of Cairn University. And in particular, I think a couple of things that you could sort of hang a couple of ideas on in terms of processing this chapel for you personally. When we announce a music alumni chapel, some of you probably got a little scared, nervous, concerned. And I want you to be able to take away some things that you can sort of hang your hat on. One of the larger conversations that's happening today in developing a rationale for higher education is the idea of creativity and the idea of the entrepreneurial spirit. And these kinds of ideas can be experienced in all of your majors, but in particular in a school of music where we're dealing with a cultural artifact that's changing all the time. Bridging the change to music that has already been written, established. You could even call it a canon of music, of Western classical music, of Eastern classical music. You could call it a canon of creativity, bridging the canon of creativity to the changing nature of creativity. This is what musicians deal with every single day when they go and practice a piece, compose a piece, conduct a piece. And these ideas that we experience on a creative side can impact you as a business major, a social work major, an education major, whatever major you're in. These values of creativity and diversity can shape your world and are shaping our world. So, jumping right in, I want to introduce these wonderful alumni, and I'm so glad that you're here with us. It's just an encouragement to have you here. Let's have the first slide of Valerie here. Valerie graduated from Cairn University in 1993 with a degree in music education and has a passion for ministry, a passion for teaching, and a passion for creativity. I've gotten to know Valerie over the last couple years, I guess, 2 years or so. And it's just been a joy to hear of her life and her walk with the Lord while a student at Cairn and since being a student at Cairn. Let's go to the next slide. I've known Tom Hong for a long time, since 1998, I think. That's going way back. And Tom graduated here with a degree in piano performance, and he continued to study at Temple, at the Curtis Institute of Music, which is a very prestigious conservatory here in Philadelphia, and at Rice University as music director of the Mansfield Symphony, has held posts with the Pittsburgh Symphony and Dallas Symphony, and it's great to have Tom here today. Let's go to the next slide. Kyle graduated in 1980. Way back now. And Kyle has had a fascinating career in music, being a longtime curator of the Fleischer Collection, which I think is the largest depository of orchestral music in the world.
Yeah,
Lending Library of Orchestral Music in the world, right here in Philadelphia. Recently retired from that to pursue composition full-time and has had massive acclaim, more recently with his work called Vespers, which is written for contemporary choir and Renaissance band. Very interesting piece, and it's a wonderful piece. Wonderful to have. Let's welcome them here today. And I kind of want to start, we're going to interview each one and kind of go through some various topics here. And if you could use, please, the microphones that are in between when I'm talking directly to you. Let's start with Kyle. I'm going to play a piece of Kyle, and I'm sorry I didn't memorize this piece, but could you talk about this piece, Kyle? This is a very interesting piece written a while ago. Just talk a little bit about it.
Well, this is the old, I guess you would call it an old gospel hymn, Softly and Tenderly, Jesus is Calling. And I actually forget why I made a piano arrangement of this, but I was, one thing I like to do when I'm composing is if the piece zigs, I like to zag. And so a lot of times this is done softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling. But I like to, I slowed it down. And the one interesting, that's not very interesting, but it was to me at the time, and to make, I wasn't actually writing a lot of solo piano literature. I don't play the piano to save my life. But this was an attempt to try to rectify some of that. What was interesting to me is that I revised it just last year, a couple or two ago, and it goes back a ways. And then when I revised it, I shuddered at some of the things that I thought were quite lousy about it. But then I found that when I just changed a couple very small things, it all kind of clicked into place, and so that made me happy with it now. But of course, I was happy with it way back then, so, who knows? So it's Softly and Tenderly, yeah.
We're going to hear this piece now, and then I have a few questions for Kyle after we hear it. Thank you for that piece.
Thank you for playing it. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about just some decisions that you made in revising it. Is there any kind of musical decisions that you made between the first version and the second version?
I think the problem that I discovered is a problem that a lot of composers have when they're younger, is that you want to think up ideas. You want to think up really cool ideas. And if you can't come up with anything cool, just any idea at all, so you just keep thinking up ideas. And I think what I've found is that the older I get, is that the ideas don't matter so much. If you come up with one really good idea, that's good enough. And the thing that got me about this, and it was so obvious, that softly and tenderly, come home, come home, come home, come home. So the come home, ba-bam, bam-bam. So I keep repeating that, and when you get about 3/4 of the way through, and then you have that big explosion of come home, then I think it really means something. I had too much in there before, and it's a short piece. You don't need a lot of ideas, which was good for me because I had trouble coming up with them. So I like to get it down to one nub of an idea and then just work that. So I think it was kind of taking out the trash a lot. A lot of composition is just taking out the trash.
And so musicians, we respond to this sort of abstract thinking. When you're dealing with music, you're dealing with abstract thoughts, abstract writing, abstract feelings. Valerie, you had a wonderful connection with a Chopin nocturne, and could you talk a little bit about how this piece impacted you as a young person, and giving you a passion for music and a passion for teaching? I have to say, this piece also spoke to me. when I was in high school. I tried to sit down after hearing it once and put, that 2 against 3 together. It didn't work for the longest time. But could you explain this piece? This is a nocturne by Chopin.
I was in high school when it spoke to me. It was after my junior year of high school. I was at Chahy Summer School of Music. Great place. And my teacher introduced this piece to me. And I would say up until this piece of music, I was a learn the notes and move on to the next piece of music kind of musician. And while we were working on this piece, my teacher was introducing things to me, like in this section, there's peace. You want to emulate peace. In this section, there's joy. There's a little bit of turmoil in this section. And just the different emotions that as I was learning it, I had never worked on that, and it was just very inspiring to me. And then when I performed the piece at a recital, I was so moved at the end of the piece. And then when I learned that it connected with other people as well, that's kind of what just drew me in to really, really love music and think that this is what I want to do with my life, and I want to come alongside other people and help them to just love music like this and, experience these emotions as well. So that this piece was just very inspirational to me.
Yeah, and this piece doesn't have any lyrics. There are no words to this piece. It is, and nobody in the history of the world wrote like Chopin. He comes in the middle of the 19th century and blows creativity out of the water. Connects to people in ways, as Valerie expressed, emotions, ideas. Him being Polish, connecting to a whole nation. Consequently, he died in Paris, but they took his heart out and carried and buried it in Poland. That's kind of gory, but but anyway, I want to play a little bit of this piece. I might even play the whole thing. This is a nocturne, which is a night song that Chopin really developed this beautiful expression, a character piece, if you would, of kind of a mood piece, focusing on one mood, but then, as Valerie said, going into this peaceful state, excited state. It's just gorgeous. There's a lot there in the music, and tell us a little bit about how that, maybe even specifically, how you communicate your love of music to your students and just connecting to it emotionally.
Well, I think, as they continue to progress in their abilities, it's much easier to do that, But it's just helping them to feel what they're playing. Once they get the notes, and that's the focal point of many kids. And many of my students, that's what they care about. That's the only thing. So I try and have them play music that they can relate to or that they know. Like, for example, my spring recital, where it's a movie theme.
Yeah.
So right now we're in the fun process of everybody picking the, songs they like from movies. So I think that if they can relate to a song, at my younger students especially, if they can relate to the song, they can pour their emotion into it. Then as they get older and they progress in their abilities, as well as just the emotions and their life experience, then they're able to pour more of that into their music, and it becomes just more emotional, and they're able to grasp that. I have a junior in high school right now who she's, when I started with her last year, it was very note-oriented, which, again, was what I was. But just recently, I'm just seeing more of the expression coming out and feeling of the music and the phrasing. And it's just very exciting to see that, because I think it's rewarding for them as well, because it's pleasing to the ear and they're connecting with it.
Well, what a gift that the Lord has given to us in music, in that, Kyle, you can connect to an audience emotionally with your music. Valerie, you're connecting with the students emotionally and spiritually, and guiding them through music making. And it's just a real privilege to be dealing with music on a day-to-day basis, that we get to share that with the soul of society, and we get to contribute to the health and well-being of of a society and connecting to them emotionally, psychologically, and dealing with this beautiful, beautiful music. Now, Tom, your discipline doesn't use words either. And one of the most puzzling, I think people are puzzled by how a conductor communicates with an orchestra. I mean, we've all seen the Bugs Bunny cartoons where he's conducting and making things happening. He holds up his hand, takes his hand out, the glove's still there, and the guy's still singing, you know. Could you just briefly give us a little bit about what it is that a conductor does, so that when all of us go to the next orchestra concert, we are understanding, at least at a basic level, what's going on?
Well, there's no mystery. We don't really do anything up there. But it'll be our secret, because I would be out of a job if we share this to my other organizations that I work for. In all seriousness, the conductor is like a musical coach. So for all these sports teams, these professional teams, you know, they say a baseball, I don't know, is it a manager?
Yes.
He's responsible for winning, let's say, a handful of games in critical moments during the course of a season. If they play 100 or some games, I know it's a lot more than that for baseball. So their job is to manage the team, you know, like rotation and all those things, and have a unified approach to winning and those things. But also it depends on the caliber and the talent of the athletes, right? So similarly, for an orchestra conductor, especially as the level of each ensemble or any given ensemble varies and rises, they don't need the rudimentary kind of training, like come in on beat 2 or you know, play soft. Those things they are able to process, or they come fully prepared to play that way. However, it's about giving a holistic approach, a unified vision to music, or to the piece that we will be preparing to perform. And it goes, it's very practical, or I know all of you can relate to all of this, because in any given organization, Cairn University, right? The president or those that are in charge, we look to them, whether we do it intentionally or unintentionally, to have a vision, to have direction. What do we want to accomplish in long term, in terms of the spiritual visions that we have, or the ambitions that we have before the Lord? How can we guide the students there in a way that is promotes success? So there's that component of a conductor. It's like anything else of a leader in an organization. You're expected to be the one to have confidence, have a direction, have vision. The other thing is the performance aspect of a conductor, right? So we get up there, we wave our arms around. I don't have much hair now, but when I did, which I never did, you flare your hair so as to get the audience like, oh yeah, the music's supposed to be exciting at that point. And but basically, there's the performance aspect where maybe the simplest term is miming the music, where you try to be a reflection of the music from, again, the most basic things, where immediately you know what fast music evokes excitement. So if you see energy in the conductor, that translates to that kind of character within the music. And then there's really subtle things that professional musicians can connect right away, and that's just like all of you. You read when you're younger. You're reading a book. Like I read to my 9-month-old daughter. We read the Bible, but it's pictures, and of course we get through the Bible in if I read to her every day in 3 months. And it's more simple lessons and words that I communicate to her. And her response to me reading the Bible is to tear the pages and see how much she can grab in terms of the pages. So that's her reading, that's her response. But as we get older, certain words take on a poetic meaning. So when I'm reading, or when you hear a poem that's only 30 seconds long, and the word love is used, immediately that connects with you. So it's in the same thing. You actually do less as a conductor when you're performing with professionals. It's about taking out the trash. You want to do that one gesture that allows them to connect to the music, whether you look up all of a sudden and they hear the hope in the music immediately. So that's what I do.
And now we're just going to hear from 2 students, a couple of questions, and then we'll close today off.
Hi, my name is Kara Detweiler. I'm in music education. Could you identify the most challenging experience in your music education here?
Let's have Kyle answer this.
Yeah. I had to pass piano proficiency.
It's possible.
But I have to tell you, I was the first one of my group of knuckleheads who had to take it, who did pass. It took me 3 years. So there was like a trumpet major, voice majors, and a couple of us knucklehead composers who couldn't play the piano, but you had to pass piano proficiency. That was the most difficult thing. When I came here, I was taken on probation. I couldn't read music. I wanted to be a composer. I didn't know how one became a composer, but I wanted to study the Bible and I wanted to be a composer. This was the place to go. And I don't regret that at all. And so, I learned to read music and I learned, key signatures and stuff like that. But yeah, the nuts and bolts of that, the very beginning, that was the most seemingly life-threatening things that would flash before my eyes when I'm trying to play scales or play even a 4-part hymn or play some simple Chopin mazurka or something like that. It's like, what's the easiest thing? Something that goes really slow. And so all my piano music is slow. So anyway, for me.
Probably for me, it was memorizing my music. Anyway, it's not a strong point of mine and had to do it throughout. And then I remember being my senior recital, and the entire second half of my senior recital was a Chopin concerto. It was like 20 minutes long, so I had to memorize that. And my teacher accompanied me in a second piano. And I remember, I was probably 10 minutes into it. It was a big section, and I just forgot. I just remember literally thinking to myself, this is a nightmare, and I can't get out of it. I've got to keep on going. And somehow I found my way back, and I don't know, but that was, memorizing music was probably the hardest thing for me. Needless to say, I don't require my piano students to memorize their music.
And the last question, and this is to Tom.
Okay.
As you reflect on your time here, could you identify a moment that happened here in which the Lord shaped your life and your work?
I have to take a moment because there is a moment. So, my sophomore year, one of the things as a student or as a musician is, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but to have ambition. You know, you to be a performer, you have to believe that you have to have a little bit of this delusional belief that you could be the best out there if you're not necessarily. So those kind of thoughts were, in one's mind then. But this, what I want to share is actually not even related to that, because I came here based on my mom's urging. And and all of you can relate. And I shared before with an alum. Sometimes God takes half-hearted choices that you make, and He honors them. And so there was a moment where I was a sophomore, and my mom would, drag me to church, force me to pray with her, and I'm like, really, I'm 19, and that kind of thing. And but there was a moment where I was able to kind of see her from not a son's perspective, but from the Lord's perspective, and it broke me, and it caused me to see beyond our own needs, our own ambitions, to how Christ just touches people. And to this day, she hasn't changed. She's still the servant that that God used to break her son's heart. And so there it is.
Cairn is a really special place because of the people that walk these halls, play music, enjoy fellowship together, and challenge each other to walk for the Lord in the various fields that He's called us to. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, alumni. Thank you so much.